From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefania Bravo, and this is From the South. Colombia's President Iván Duque says his government will negotiate with the National Liberation Army once it releases all those captive. Duque says they are waiting for the release to resume the peace talks with the armed group in Cuba's capital, Havana. The government estimates that the National Liberation Army is holding at least 17 people hostage.
We need all criminal activities to stop, starting with the release of the hostages. If those acts of good faith occur, the kidnapped people are freed, and there is a halt to illegal activities, then the government is ready to proceed with the talks.
And meanwhile, the ELN has said it is the government's lack of will what has stalled the release of the captives. The group also denounced military operations affecting their humanitarian efforts. U.S. high officials have allegedly met with members of the Venezuelan army to oust President Nicolás Maduro. That is according to the New York Times. The report says the conversations between the coup plotters began in August 2017. The current state of the relation between the U.S. and the Venezuelan officials is unknown. 90 Venezuelan migrants are returning home from Peru thanks to their Return to the Homeland program. This is the second group of migrants living in Peru to return home under the plan boosted by the Venezuelan government. Over 500 Venezuelans in Peru have so far applied to the program. They have denounced xenophobia, exploitation, and poor living conditions.
I'm pregnant and I'm very happy for this program. I thank God and our government for helping us.
I thank God for allowing me to return to my country and for giving me the chance to build it, to work for Venezuela.
The Workers' Party in Brazil continues to promote their candidates as the presidential campaign continues. Former President Luis Ignacio Lula da Silva is supporting his vice presidential candidate, Fernando Haddad, from prison. Haddad has also been accused of bribery by the prosecutor in Sao Paulo, but the Workers' Party has announced a political persecution against their candidates. Meanwhile, right-wing candidate Jair Bolsonaro has said he was, quote, prepared for an attack. Bolsonaro underwent surgery for multiple wounds and is now in stable condition. He was attacked during a walkabout in the southeastern city of Juiz de Fora on Thursday.
All of us have a mission here on earth, and this mission will be accomplished by me or by you or by someone else until the moment determined by God. I prepared myself for a moment like this because you run risks.
And Bolsonaro supporters have held vigils outside the hospital. They are praying for his speedy recovery. The presidential candidate has previously been criticized for outbursts deemed racist, misogynist, and homophobic. The Workers' Party has condemned the attack against Bolsonaro. Lula's party has said violence cannot be justified and made a call for politics to be a space to fight on ideas.
No act of violence can be justified. We cannot justify violence, nor normalize it. Politics is a space for debate, for different positions, and to fight, but with your ideas. We really regret what happened, and we hope justice is served to the attacker.
And former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa has accused the current government of reaching an agreement with the U.S. on Chevron. According to Correa, President Lenin Moreno is, quote, doing what was ordered by the U.S. Vice President Mike Pence. The accusation comes after the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague ruled in favor of the oil company. It declared Ecuador guilty of violating a bilateral investment treaty between the two countries. Ecuador's Solicitor General said the country would now have to pay economic reparations to Chevron.
In 2003, a group of indigenous people from the Ecuadorian Amazon started a series of legal actions against Chevron for its harmful behavior, including spilling 60 billion liters of toxic water into the Amazon. Chevron not only violated the rights of the communities, but also was accused of being responsible for causing the deaths of several indigenous people.
The 3 women from 3 different families that lived near the pool died of cancer.
Despite the damage generated by Chevron, the Court of The Hague has ruled in favor of the oil company and declared Ecuador responsible for violating a bilateral investment treaty signed with the United States in 1997. The amount Ecuador will need to pay Chevron will be settled within the next 90 days.
According to the tribunal, Ecuador didn't comply with its obligation of not suing the companies Texaco and Chevron for environmental damage.
The government of Ecuador, in response to this ruling, said that it will find the perpetrators of this situation and blame former President Rafael Correa for spending public funds on a campaign to aid the indigenous people and their trial. In light of these events, the defense team of the indigenous people affected by Chevron have rejected this decision.
The agreements are below the frameworks of rights, and they cannot, under this legal norm, prevent people from having rights and access to justice. We will continue fighting in the international courts, looking for our sentence to be executed internationally.
The Dirty Hand of Chevron campaign condemned the behavior of U.S. multinational oil company Chevron in the Amazon. Ecuador's Constitutional Court has rejected Chevron's request to revise a national court ruling that sentenced it to pay $9.5 billion in environmental and social reparations to the communities affected during its operation in the Ecuadorian Amazon. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Ecuador.
Barbados has signed a $290 million economic assistance agreement with the International Monetary Fund, or IMF. The IMF's executive board is expected to consider the proposed arrangement by October. Once approved, Barbados would have immediate access to $49 million. The Caribbean country has the 4th highest debt to GDP ratio in the world after Japan, Greece, and Sudan. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Costas Usinas es un intelectual que nunca imaginó convertirse en diputado. Este catedrático de Filosofía del Derecho, especialista en los derechos humanos y la posmodernidad, se implicó en el amplio movimiento antiausteridad que recorrió las plazas de Grecia combatiendo a la Troika sin pensar que ello le acabaría sentando en el Parlamento.
Special interview. Today, only on Telesur.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud amigos, tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
Welcome back. Hundreds of dismissed public workers from the former labor and agronomy ministries have taken to the streets of Argentina. They are rejecting the massive layoffs. Hundreds of workers have already been dismissed and fear the number could increase. 12 ministries have been absorbed by other government offices as part of the austerity measures imposed by the government of Mauricio Macri.
Yesterday, I received the dismissal telegram. There are 500 of us who are now without work, and taking into account the country situation, the economic situation, we will not find work. 500 of us are out of work. In April, it was 300 people. Every week, they are dismissing more people.
There's a lot of uncertainty about the number of layoffs the situation can lead to, and with this in mind, public workers are mobilizing in all ministries throughout Argentina.
And meanwhile, 4 unions leading strikes in Buenos Aires have reached an agreement with the government on wage increase. On Friday, university teachers and students attended their lectures blocking dozens of main avenues as part of protests against government austerity measures. Protesters blame the government for burdening the country with the $50 billion loan from the International Monetary Fund. Argentina is suffering its worst crisis since Mauricio Macri was elected president.
Neither the IMF's intervention in Argentina nor presidential announcements have calmed down anger on the streets of the country. Economic uncertainty, the increasing devaluation of the national currency, and closed ministries supposed to reduce the fiscal deficit make part of the country's crisis and show the lack of public and social policies.
The results of turning the labor ministry into a secretariat, which depends on the production ministry, is a hard hit for labor rights. Another problem is that they are just considering this as a matter of salaries, seen from the enterprise's point of view.
We are not sure about how we will manage the workers, but we have witnessed before how they manage different programs, such as ANSES, where many workers were fired in the name of development.
This way, national ministries were degraded and turned into secretariats, which means that the dismissal will increase and budget will be reduced. Among the main affected are the health, labor, and science and technology fields, all vital for the country's development.
It is clear that this is a decision of great concern. This was seen with dictatorships in the past. It was during Ongangia's government that ministers were turned into secretariats. So this is just an example of what we can achieve with these policies.
Despite these decisions, which affect the country's economic growth, Macri increased the budget to fight Kirchnerismo by 25%. However, the head of Macri's cabinet, Macros Peña, stated that they will keep it and it will be included in the 2019 budget.
Y esta decisión entra dentro del presupuesto que el gobierno presentará para 2019.
I think we must not vote for this budget. We still must see what the Congress members will do later, but I think that we must ignore it because it is part of the cuts. It is IMF's money.
Meanwhile, different analysts say that inflation has reached 33.8% and calculate that the year will be close to 44%. The data shows that unemployment will increase and many small and medium companies will be forced to close down.
The government of Nicaragua has inaugurated the Expo PYME 2018 to create more opportunities for small entrepreneurs. More details in this report.
This is what the streets of Nicaragua look like on a day of national strike. Meanwhile, the government promotes opportunities to boost the economy as it inaugurates the Expo PYME 2018. This event is aimed to create opportunities for small entrepreneurs.
We have prepared an agenda for everyday wear. We are addressing issues that focus on the mechanism of financing small business, trends in the food and agro-industry sector. This is important and is changing every day. We have the support of different institutions that back up PYMEs and small business.
Artisans like Maria Magdalena believe that the best is to ignore the strikes called by the opposition that have caused deaths and injured. More than 200,000 people have been unemployed as well. Those attending the expo can find clothes, food, and crafts produced by small and medium-scale enterprises.
They need to work to sustain their family. That is the objective of these spaces that the government provides for us, to help us with the economy of our household.
Leonardo Torres, member of the board of the Central Bank of Nicaragua, assures that the economy of the country is being held by small businesses and the agriculture sector.
If
there are no jobs, no health system, no education, who is the one who suffers? The ones who go to public hospitals, not the ones who go to private hospitals. The ones who suffer are the simple people. It's important to create jobs. Thankfully, the loss of direct employment has stopped. Thankfully, the economy is rising.
Meanwhile, the opposition is calling for more strikes as the government is making progress and continues to call for peace and reconciliation.
And Guatemala's President Jimmy Morales has defended his decision to expel the International Commission Against Impunity from the country. Morales said this will not put at risk any ongoing corruption case investigation, but the decision came as Congress is discussing removing the president's immunity to investigate him. Members of his family have also been linked to corruption scandals. The mission's mandate is renewed by the government every 2 years.
I reaffirm that the decision not to renew the International Commission Against Impunity mandate or that of a new commission will not affect nor put at risk corruption cases in Guatemala. This statement is in response to speculation from national and international actors who have claimed there is an alleged obstruction of justice. This has been completely rejected.
And security forces in Honduras have launched different raids against criminal gangs. The operations have taken place after several bodies were found wrapped in sheets in the roads of capital Tegucigalpa. The victims were murdered in the so-called crazy houses controlled by gangs. At least 8 neighborhoods have been raided. Former Chilean Bishop Juan Barros is the suspect of 2 separate investigations into the cover-up of sexual abuses. Barros was interrogated for more than 3 hours. He is accused of protecting his former mentor, Fernando Caradima, who was found guilty of sexually abusing teenage boys for years. Pope Francis accepted Barros' resignation in June after defending him earlier this year.
I told the prosecutor that I knew or didn't know, and I hold hope in God that all will turn out well and that the truth will start coming to light.
In terms of the dates, the number of facts, the victims, these are matters being investigated. We have carried out an undetermined number of reports. We also have plenty of testimonies from the victims, so within that context, we are advancing in our investigation.
And still in Chile, the government has announced a decontamination plan in Valparaíso. This after toxic gases coming from mines and refineries caused an environmental crisis. Classes were suspended in the communities of Quintero and Puchuncaví, the most affected by the crisis. The government has blamed the oil state company for the poisoning and said it will take legal action. At least 200 people from the coastal region have been affected, mostly miners.
The first thing is to find the cause of what produced the problem. We still don't know what caused this. We still do not have definitive, reliable, and fully validated results of what really produced the poisoning.
My girl said on Saturday, "It hurts a little here, Mom." When I saw her, and she had 4 more blisters. On Monday, when I saw her, she said, "Look, Mom, now I have them on my back." She had everything red.
And Bolivia's largest photovoltaic solar plant is now working. President Evo Morales inaugurated the plant. His government invested around $62 million in the project. The people of Rio de Janeiro have also been coming together to begin the reconstruction of Brazil's National Museum. The museum burned down on Sunday, destroying 200 years of priceless artifacts.
The building that housed Brazil's National Museum survived the fire that destroyed 90% of the artifacts inside. Nearly 20 million pieces spanning millions of years of existence were lost. The academic community has promised to continue reconstruction efforts.
We didn't just lose Brazilian history. We lost artifacts representing millions of years of human history, like fossils, indigenous artifacts, and ancient insects.
One of the biggest losses was the oldest human fossil in the American continent, Egyptian mummies, along with countless archaeological and geological collections that told the history of the continent's original people.
This was an attack on our memory, on our history,
on the original languages of Latin America is very serious, one of the worst attacks on the history of the indigenous people.
The National Museum is part of the University of Rio de Janeiro, which has faced large budget cuts since 2015. They've only become worse since President Michel Temer came to office. He cut the museum's budget by nearly $20 million.
It's not just the museum. The whole country is being affected by this perverse logic of budget cutbacks. We have started to mobilize, trying to show our reality, to inform people to fight these policies. To destroy Rio's university is to destroy the nation itself. It's destroying our future.
One of Michel Temer's first measures was a constitutional amendment that froze public investments for 20 years, greatly affecting culture and education.
I
think there has to be political compromise so we as a nation can revoke these measures because education, health, culture and even science are being eradicated.
The Brazilian people will not hold anything back in their efforts to see the museum be rebuilt. They also say they will take to the streets to demand that the constitutional amendment that froze public spending for 20 years be repealed.
Desde Rio de Janeiro, André Vieira e Sebastián Soto, Telesur, Brasil.
Mexican director Alfonso Cuarón has been awarded the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival. He has received the top prize with his film Roma. The movie tells the story of an indigenous maid called Cleo. The story is based on the life of the woman who took care of him when he was a child. Roma also portrays the Mexico City of Cuarón's childhood. Opera has brought rhythm to a popular market in Mexico City. A group of musicians surprised market goers with a musical performance. The concert ended with standing ovations. This initiative aims to bring art to everyday life in the bustling capital. More shows are expected across the popular markets. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
We are African. Culture and tradition is what we are born with.
We might be apart in terms of distance, but we are always together.
We need to love ourselves. Back to Africa.
Sunday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Hundreds of people have demonstrated in the German city of Chemnitz against a right-wing rally. Demonstrators held signs that red racism is the father of all problems. Germany has been deeply shaken by the most violent right-wing protests seen in decades. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said rebel militias in Idlib, Syria should surrender in the interests of civilians. Speaking at the Syrian summit hosted by Iran, Putin urged rebels to lay down their weapons. His comments come as Syria prepares for a major offensive in Idlib to oust the Al-Nusra Front.
The main task at this stage is to banish militants from the province of Idlib, as their presence there poses a direct threat to the safety of the Syrian citizens and residents of the whole region.
And protesters have attacked and set the Iranian consulate on fire in Basra, Iraq. As the latest episode of the deadly demonstration starting on Monday, protesters forced their way into the building. They condemned the political influence the country has over Iraq. Residents say corruption, the lack of power, and drinking water also triggered the protests. And Israel is constructing a 30-foot high wall along the border with Lebanon to prevent its enemies from infiltrating the country. The wall will be equipped with steel mesh and high-tech surveillance systems. So far, around 7 miles have been built, but that will eventually extend to 80. Lebanon has denounced the wall as an intrusion of their territory. A Palestinian teenager has been killed and over 200 have been wounded by the Israeli army in the Gaza Strip. The 17-year-old Palestinian Belal Mustafa Kafaja has been shot in the chest by an Israeli sniper, according to health officials. At least 167 Palestinians have been killed and 18,000 injured by the Israeli forces since the Great March or Return protests started 5 months ago. Chief of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency has lamented the U.S. decision to withdraw funding from the agency operating in Palestinian territories. Calling from Jerusalem, the chief said that decision surprised him, as meetings in Washington showed positive feedback over their work. The U.S. was the biggest donor of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency, but has only paid out of a fraction of what it originally pledged for the year.
Very clear.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And also join us on social media, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.
Usinas es un intelectual que nunca imaginó convertirse en diputado. Este catedrático de Filosofía del Derecho, especialista en los derechos humanos y la posmodernidad, se implicó en